Here.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Here.
Mr. Ewing, Mrs. Milius,
Here.
Mr. Hole,
Here.
Mrs. Baker.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, moving on to the approval of the agenda.
Madam President, I move to approve the agenda as presented with limited sports update breaks happening throughout the meeting.
Second. All right, there's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All right, Rachel, please take the vote.
Mr. Chitwood,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mrs. Milius,
Yes.
Mr. Hole,
Yes.
Mrs. Baker,
Yes.
Mrs. Horn.
Yes.
Approved.
Wonderful, thank you. Will you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you very much. Moving on to the reading of the USD230 mission and vision. We do this to keep our mission and vision at the forefront of our thoughts as we make decisions regarding our school district. Our mission is to be a school district that engages students to learn, create, adapt, and succeed in an ever-changing world. Our vision is to maintain small town values and empower each student to achieve world-class success. All right, moving on. Business with individuals.
No cards were presented.
Thank you, Rachel. All right, moving on to the consent agenda, which includes approval of the consent agenda items, approval of the minutes, personnel, renewal of parchment for Spring Hill High School, and early graduation requests.
Madam President, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented in red.
Can I just add one thing before I second that motion? I went through all of the applications that were approved, and I just want to give a shout out to the young people that are really taking the first step towards whatever that next step is in their life. It seems to me that a lot of them are making career choices, smart choices for their future. We've got a couple that are going to serve in the military. And so I really want to just commend our young people for taking that initiative and wish them the best of success in getting an early start on that. So I second your motion, Mr. Chitwood.
Wonderful. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right, Rachel, please take the vote.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mrs. Milius,
Yes.
Mr. Hole,
Yes.
Mrs. Baker,
Yes.
Mrs. Horn,
Yes.
Mr. Chitwood.
Yes.
Approved.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right, moving on. Good news, recognitions, and announcements. Dr. Luttrell.
Yes, thank you. We have a couple of very appropriate items this evening. The first one is we are going to have come to the front two individuals that were named the USD230 Horizon Award winners. The Horizon Award is given each year to every district can nominate two individuals that typically one elementary, one secondary that have served, less than two years or less in the profession. And from that local selection, they then are moved on to the state competition where they will also select a series of Horizon Award winners at the state level. But tonight we wanted to recognize our local nominees for that. They've done a great job during their brief tenure here at USD 230. And I would like to have come to the front and we'll get some pictures. And if you've got guests with you, we'd like at that time to also maybe have you introduce any of the guests that you have. And if you have anything at all you want to say about the opportunities you've experienced so far with Spring Hill Schools, you will be more than welcome to do so. But I would like to have the two Horizon Award winners from the secondary level, Mr. Brock LaPlante, who teaches high school science. And we're also going to have Ms. Jessica Camplain, who is at Spring Hill Elementary School with fourth grade. Yeah, we very much appreciate everything that they've done, and both have bright futures, and we're hoping that we can keep them here in Spring Hill School USD230 for a very, very, very long time. Because as they can tell you, as they found out in the first season, that teaching is a profession, but it is also a profession that requires a lot of very, very hard work. It is not easy like many may think. And again, we're very fortunate to have these two individuals, and we wish them the best of luck moving forward in the statewide competition. So we'll get some pictures here, then we'll let you all have some introductions. You all can do that. Thank you all very much. You all have somebody you want to introduce? I've seen them around. You bet. You all make sure you take your mother out to dinner and. Oh. But here you want to introduce Brian?
Oh, yeah, I'm a lovely family here, all the, kind of so.
What are you doing, sir? Again, very much, again, I appreciate you talking. It's always very, very nice to recognize individuals that excel in the teaching profession or in the education profession as a whole. Our next recognition this evening, thought it would be very appropriate that, there's always the emphasis on making sure that we keep all of our campuses safe, our students and our staff safe, especially whenever, they're with us. And the Board of Education has been very, very committed to doing that. Just this past year, well, in the past couple of years, we've done a lot of things in terms of with strategics, making sure that our buildings stay secure. Because, we've also had school resource officers, but as our population has grown, our new schools have opened up, that number had really not increased. But this past year, our Board of Education was very, and rightly so, insistent that we make sure that we're doing all we can. So they actually put into the budget, we increased by 50% our number of SROs. We increased from 2 to 3. We still have, some room to grow there with that. But the school resource officer is a very important person. I cannot tell you how many times over my brief tenure that I've taken phone calls from parents. And if anything, they will say the number one thing that they give peace of mind is when they do see a school resource officer somewhere around the campus during the day at any time. Okay. We have been fortunate, as we said, to have had the two that we've had in place for a long time. As one of them, Officer Pesnick, has been out for a while and is still out, on some due to some health matters, but we'll be coming back shortly. But in the meantime, we've had an interim. But I thought we would put together, and we have put together, a brief video called "A Day in the Life of a School Resource Officer." And so we're going to play that video. And then we are also fortunate, after the video, we have our 3 current SROs. One of them is the interim that are here. And I'd like for them to maybe come up, and if they want to add anything, or if you all just at that time want to show them some appreciation, you can do that. But our communications department put together this video that kind of chronicles a day in the life of a school resource officer at Spring Hill Schools.
Any plans for this weekend, guys? So I actually went to Spring Hill, so I knew I wanted to be at this school. And when I was here, it was actually the high school. An opening popped up, and I put in for it and got it. Good morning. I try to start at a different school every day. I come back to the middle school. I will go through the hallways when they're in class just to make sure doors are locked. During passing period, I will step outside my office, walk the halls, and just kind of greet kids, tell them good morning, good afternoon kind of thing. We're just trying to get people get into the right doors. This lane, guys. Otherwise, it's just like a big mess. So I will let Mr. Meek know when the lines kind of die down, and he'll send the next group over. There's trouble. During lunch, I come out here and help them with anything they need, opening bottles, opening ketchup packets, stuff like that. And then I usually help clean up in between the two lunches as well. I mix it up again at the school too. I'll go to like the bus lane for one day. I'll go to the parent lane for another day kind of thing, just so I get to see everybody and everybody kind of gets to see me.
Let's go Broncos. Let's go Broncos. Well, this will be my 5th parade. First time leading it. Usually Deputy Peshnick's leading it, so neighbors aren't awake. They're awake now. That's good. I enjoy it. It was a position I never really knew much or thought much about until I was at the school. I had the opportunity to start working at the schools, and I really enjoyed it. I liked it. I like talking with the kids, helping the kids out, building relationships with them on a professional level. That I get to teach certain classes. Coming up, I'm going to do a constitutional law class for the history classes at the high school. So it's enjoyable. There's something new every day, but it is fun. Sometimes a kid is really struggling with something outside of school, and they bring it into school, and just realizing that their hard day that they're having in school has really nothing to do with school. Sometimes I want to talk about what's happening outside of school, but other times you just break down the barrier, just ask them what they're interested in, just so they know, hey, this trusted adult cares about me, cares about my general well-being, and I can trust them and I can talk to them about whatever problem I'm having. Or, they could change their attitude for the rest of the day and have a good day. That's something I was not expecting to do, is to almost be a mentor or a counselor to a lot of people, but I enjoy it very much. A normal police officer might not see whoever they encounter again. As an SRO, I'm able to see those kids throughout the rest of the year, throughout the rest of their high school career, elementary lives. And so it's fun to continue on that with them.
And that was our brief video of a day in the life of our school resource officer. Again, we thank our communications department for putting that together. But I said we do have in the very back, we have our 3 SROs here. If y'all would stand and kind of wave if you don't want to come to the front, because again, I do know that you all do a very good job every day, and you probably don't get told enough, but it is very, very much appreciated. And I can assure you that our parents and patrons know your presence across all of our campuses. So again, thank you. And that is my good news announcements and recognitions.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. That was a great video. Officer Ramos, I feel like I was watching a video, like an episode of Cops or something. So, very cool. All right, moving on to discussion items. 8.01, the strategic plan update.
We do try to give of our 5 core values, which our strategic plan, competency plan is built around. We try to give updates throughout the year to tell what our progress is and where we're at in tonight. Of course, our main core value is, of course, student success, which revolves a lot around, of course, how our students are performing in the classroom locally, how they're performing on state assessments, nationally normed assessments. And so here this evening to give us a brief update on student success, core value number 1, is our Director of Teaching and Learning, Dr. Erin Smith, and she's going to talk about a couple different assessments at the state, the national, but only going to give our local data. Now, she will be back in November and give part 2, and part 2 will kind of have a much broader, will show how do our students on these state assessments and nationals, how are they comparing with their peers across Johnson County, across the region, across the state. So, Dr. Smith, you have the floor.
That point, if I can interject, I will.
Oh, I was talking about the freshman game over, oh.
We can get some updates from Mr. Williams on that too. So we are going to look at some local data from 3 different assessments this evening. That includes our state assessment, which we test for English language arts, math, and science, our ACT, and our advanced placement exams. And just a little background on these assessments, our state assessment measures ELA, math, and science in grades 3 through 8, and at the high school, grade 10 for English language arts and math. And for science, it's grades 5, 8, and 11, which are tested. And these assessments provide a school district with some general academic performance information on these 3 content areas, how your academic program is looking with respect to grade level standards. So these assessments only measure a grade level standard. So when you have a 3rd grade student who takes their state assessments in the spring, they will only be presented with items from 3rd grade. So it will not give them items above grade level or below grade level. So just those 3rd grade standards that they are meant to learn throughout the year. And then it will report from 1 to 4 in terms of performance categories. So 1 means that you have a very limited knowledge. 2 means that you have a basic knowledge of those grade level standards. 3 is that you would have a proficient or, acceptable, you're meeting those expectations. And then 4 is you're very advanced. We'll also be looking at our ACT scores. So how are students who participated in the ACT, which is typically your juniors and seniors, although sometimes you will have a sophomore who takes the ACT, how they're performing on that assessment. And this really just measures how well a student is prepared for college and skilled trades. And one thing I wanted to mention just about the ACT, because I think we typically think about it as something for college preparedness, but we recently received the workforce study that was conducted for the Kansas City metro area. It concluded in February of 2024. And right now, 66% of all of our skilled trades in the area are requiring a bachelor's degree. So this is a really great measure for students, whether they're going into a university setting, a community college, or they're thinking about pursuing a skilled trade, making sure that they are prepared to take the ACT. And then lastly, we'll look at some information regarding our advanced placement exams. So AP exams are an opportunity for students to take a course in high school that is mirroring a college level course. And if they participate in the exam for the class that they're taking, then they can earn college credit for that. So it's an opportunity if they score a 3 or better. And so you can score anywhere from a 1 to a 5 on an AP exam. If you score a 3 or better, you can earn college credit from the university that you're attending. So that gives them an opportunity to get a little bit of college credit while they're still in high school. And this evening, we wanted to show you our data on our strategic plan dashboard. So if you happen to be on our district website and you want to see how we're currently performing on these assessments, anyone from our public can go to the strategic plan dashboard and take a look at how we're performing. So we're going to take a look at that now. So if you're on the homepage, you'll see our mission, vision, and core values. And then if you go over to the indicator page, then we can start looking at some current characteristics of the school district, like enrollment, average daily attendance, and then we can find our student success metrics. So for Kansas assessments for math in levels 2 through 4, you can see results from 2021 up to 2024. So in this last assessed year, we had 85% of our students who scored in levels 2, 3, or 4. And that is above the state average. The state had 68% of the students statewide who scored at a level 2, 3, or 4 in math. So we are continuing to be above the state average, well above the state average in math. And this is also true for our students who are performing at levels 3 and 4. So in 2024, we had 52% of our students achieve levels 3 or 4 in math, and the state had an average of 33%. And so you can see the bar graphs, again, are our school district percentages. And then the line graph represents the state, or you can look down on the chart below for the academic year. For English language arts this past year, we had 83% of our students who received a 2, 3, or 4 on that assessment. And that was above the state average, which was 68%. So again, staying well above the state average for levels 2, 3, and 4 in English language arts. And for English language arts, just levels 3 and 4, still well above the state average in 2024 with a 52% for our school district, for our brick and mortar schools, and a state average of 35% at levels 3 and 4. For science, we have 80% of our students in this past academic year who tested at levels 2, 3, and 4. And again, above the state average of 62%. So that is science, levels 2, 3, and 4. And then bumping back out to look at just levels 3 and 4, we had a little bit of a decline this year, this past academic year. We had 46% of our students who tested at levels 3 and 4, above the state average of 33%, but a little bit of a drop for us. And that was most largely noticed in 5th grade. We had a pretty, more of a decline at the 5th grade level, but an increase at the 11th grade level. So one thing I am looking forward to about the science assessments this year is that KSDE for the first time is releasing what's called interim assessments and mini tests. So these are essentially practice assessments that we've not had before in science that our schools will be participating in so that our teachers in grades 5, 8, and 11 have a little better line of sight to see how students are performing throughout the year and get a bit of a prediction on how they might perform on the state assessment in the spring. So all of our schools will have that option in science this year, which we've not previously had. We have had some practice assessments for ELA and math, but we've not had them for science before. So this will be our first year to be able to take some tests and practice and prepare for that assessment. For our ACT, we saw a little bit of an uptick this year in our average ACT score. So we went up to a 21.8. And the state average, again, has just been hovering anywhere from 19.3 to 19.9. So our Spring Hill High School students are outperforming state averages on the ACT. And then our advanced placement pass rate this year was 75%. And I was really excited, especially because we have several new classes for AP this year. And that included our US government class. We had students who received a 3 or better on that. We had an 88% pass rate, where the national average for that is only a 72%. So for our new courses, our students did really well, including our European history. We had a great showing for that too. We had 81% of our students who passed that AP exam, and the national pass rate for that is only 72%. So our students on the whole are passing the advanced placement exams at a higher rate than the national average is. So this is all information that is available on our website. So we continuously update this so that people can see kind of our history, the progress that we're making, and they'll be able to view this out through 2028. And then I'm gonna go back to our presentation.
Dr. Smith, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
And I'm gonna claim this at least for the next 12 months, but as a new guy, right?
Mhm.
Does KSDE publish rankings in all of these metrics by USD? In other words,
Sure.
Who's at the high end?
Out of the 286 districts.
Are
yeah.
they all ranked?
KSDE does not rank them. So if a district is interested in seeing where they fall, we go school by school district and create our own data set.
I'll hop in there real quick.
Okay.
Dr. Smith,
Yes.
in AP, what's off the top of your head, do you remember about what the size of the cohort was, students taking AP last year?
Yeah, it varies. So we had a total of 198 exams that were taken with that 75% pass rate. And it really varies again, course to course. So some of your larger cohorts we have in US government, we had US history, European history, and our English language composition courses. Those are all some of our highest enrollment courses and then have the most students participating in the exams. So we had a total of 198 exams that were taken in the past academic year.
So if my math serves me correctly, that's 148 and a half college courses that went out.
Correct. And so a big advantage for our students to take an AP exam, it's $99. The average cost of a credit hour right now in Kansas, if you're going as an in-state tuition, is anywhere from $200 to $300. If you're coming to a university here in Kansas from out of state, you're paying anywhere for $500 to $900 a credit hour. So it can be a significant cost savings for a student to take an AP course in high school, take the exam, and then earn that college credit as opposed to paying for it at the university level.
So again, if my math serves me, thank you. If
You're
my
welcome.
math serves me correctly, at the low end of that estimate at $200 with an average of 3 hours of credit, that'd be 445 and a half hours. So we're booking in at providing roughly at the bottom end, $89,100 in college tuition deferred value savings. Thank you.
Yes.
Savings. Good work.
Thanks. And that's great math. Good job.
I used a calculator. I cannot do this on my own.
It's okay. No, it is really a nice cost savings for our students. And just to add one fun piece of variability, depending on whether you score a 3, 4, or a 5, a college may opt to award additional credit hours for the score. So it could be even greater cost savings if you've scored higher than a 3. So a couple of things that I just wanted to mention. All of our schools right now are working pretty diligently to focus on raising their state assessment scores. Dr. Luttrell shared at our leadership retreat in July a challenge to all of our schools to really dig into their data and start identifying opportunities to improve the academic outcomes for students. So all of our schools right now are looking to increase levels 3 and 4 by 2% in this coming 2025 assessment season and decrease our level 1s by 1%. So we're all working, I think, really hard around that goal. Like I said, we have some science practice exams that are available to us this year that we'll be able to take advantage of, along with those English language arts and math exams that we can practice with prior to the state assessment in March and April. And then we have a number of our teachers who I have shared with you previously that are working to complete letters training. And letters training is focused on learning how to provide great literacy instruction at the early grade levels, K1, 2, and 3. So really making sure that foundational reading skills are addressed so that we're not sending students into older grade levels with missing skills. And I'm really excited because we had our first cohort of teachers. It's 120 hours of training that they completed as of May 2024. In fact, quick shout out to Miss Elizabeth Moore back there, who's one of our graduates. We have a number of teachers who are in various cohorts. So we have one that will finish here in May 2025. We've got another that just started their journey, but by July 1st of 2028, all of our elementary school staff will have completed letters training. So this is a really great thing for both our teachers and our students. As a school district, we are also choosing to complete training for a program called Aspire with our middle school English language arts teachers. So this is for that next phase of reading. So if you think about grades K-3, you're really reading to learn. And then when you move into fourth grade, now K-3, you're learning to read, and grades 4 and above, you're really reading to learn. You're focusing on things like your comprehension skills, those Greek and Latin roots. I'm sure everybody was a real fan of those back in elementary school and middle school. But that's a program that we now have 13 middle school teachers and 3 administrators who've already completed that. That was a year-long training program for them that they completed last year. And so anytime that we onboard a new English language arts teacher to the middle school, we'll be offering them this professional development. And then, as many of you have been able to do, you've had a chance to visit some of our professional learning community collaborations that we have on Wednesdays. And this has been a real focus for us, really making sure that our teachers have a chance to work collectively, to dig into data, to discuss very timely academic support if we see a student is not understanding a concept in class. So we're really focused on using that PLC time to help us increase our state assessment scores, our ACT scores, and help make sure that all of our students are able to successfully pass their AP exams. Part of that work means that we're taking any local assessments that we give, so any quizzes, any tests, and trying to make sure that they are aligned to that same level of question that a student would get on a standardized assessment. So that way they're very practiced and prepared with regular classroom assessments, so that they are ready to go for those more standardized assessments that happen in the spring. And then we are continuing to focus too on professional development to support our multilingual learners. And I believe you'll be hearing a little bit about how we support our multilingual learners tonight. So that is a big focus for us, is making sure that our students who have more than one language spoken in the home are able to access our curriculum and our supports. And I'm not the only data presentation tonight. Mrs. Barton is also here to share how Insight and KVA have performed on assessments as well.
Can I ask you, I just have one quick question. You spoke about 5th grade, because that was kind of the one that,
Yes.
was that 5th grade this fall or 5th grade in the spring?
So the assessment is taken in the spring. So the spring of 2024, when we saw a little bit of a decline in our 5th grade science.
So I thank you for saying that, because that's what I've heard from our 6th grade teachers, is that they're seeing that and they're struggling.
Yes.
And ironically, those would be 2nd graders during the COVID year.
It would.
When they're learning some crucial things. What is our plan to bring them up to speed? Like, what do we plan to do there?
So that's an opportunity for our teachers to have some vertical conversations. So when we look at our data, we do not, and I will say we don't get a lot of detailed information from state assessments. So it doesn't provide you with real specific information on what students are missing. So we really look to see our local assessments if there's some obvious gaps that we can identify and try to fill that in our core classes. So ideally, we have conversations happening between our 5th grade and 6th grade teachers, making sure, and our 6th grade teachers too, that would be part of the PLC process. So when they're identifying gaps in learning during PLC, that's an opportunity for them to talk about how would we want to reteach that.
Gotcha. And I want to make sure that was the 5th grade that we're seeing the dip in is ELA.
It's science.
Oh, it's science.
Just science, yeah.
Science. Okay. So not ELA.
No, not ELA, just Just, it was kind of
Is
a,
science kind of the outlier here because you don't take it as many times, so there's more variation be from class to class, or?
I think that would be fair to say only because you're correct. Yeah. So science is only taken at grades 5, 8, and 11. So you have a difficult time tracking a cohort to see, okay, well, if they didn't do as well in 4th grade, what can we try to make up for in 5th grade? So we do try to rely heavily for science on our local classroom-based assessments. But yeah, they only take it 3 times. So it's a little challenging to really use the state assessment in and of itself to identify where students may need extra support.
Well, thank you. Any other questions for Dr. Smith? Sorry. Before we move on to Ms. Barton? Okay, thank you.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. So we wanted to definitely make sure we had virtual school data for you tonight as well. Recapping how our spring 2024 assessment season went. Things look different in the virtual world, and I'll speak to that a little bit more. That's one of the most common questions I get from families looking to enroll. How do we do state assessments? So there's been some good developments there. Last spring was the very first spring we could legally give the state assessments to our students virtually. Before that, we always had to do it in person. I had mentioned I would secure about 14, 15 different locations across the state. We would divide and conquer with the staff and get people there to proctor. We rent laptops and those travel with our proctors to make sure that everybody has a working device when they come on site to take the tests. And our students would take all of their state assessments in one day. We would break for lunch, but they would have to do it all in one day. Last year, we had quite a group that chose to go the virtual route, which was really exciting. There are some little kinks and things that we need to continue to work through logistically. One of them is the window to test our students virtually is only 10 school days long. And the State Department of Education requires that we use a third-party proctor vendor who had limited staffing. So we only had spots given to us on 8 of those 10 days. So we did have an issue where students maybe only took 1/2 of the assessment and then couldn't get another spot to come back and finish that assessment. So that could impact some scores and things like that. So working through those hiccups, of course, technology issues would pop up. We work through those as best we can. We continue to collaborate with KSDE as much as we can. Hopefully one day we'll get to a point that our staff can be trusted to just proctor the kids virtually ourselves. We know what we're doing and think we could do it very successfully. But until then, we will keep doing what they would like us to do and keep working with that third-party vendor. They were actually really great to work with. So we'll just continue those conversations and collaboration. So looking at that, just to give you an idea, I did put both schools together in the data, but we did offer an in-person testing week last year as well. We had 26 KSVA students take us up on that and about 38 in-site. The rest of them tested virtually. So we had 246 KSVA students we tested virtually, and 378 in-site students we tested virtually for math and ELA. So they were definitely excited to take advantage of that opportunity that came with some new legislation. So you'll see here for our math data, we did see improvements across the board as far as we've decreased our level 1s last spring, and then we increased the percentage of our students scoring in levels 2 to 4, and then also in just students scoring 3 and 4. So we are obviously continuing to push that, want to see that level 1 continue to decrease and 2 through 4 increase, with more of them moving over to 3 and 4. We've spent a lot of time since we got the data in July looking at what of those students that were here last year to take the test are still here. How did they do on FastBridge this fall? Were they kind of, we call them bubble kiddos, were they really close and we could, you know, just push them a little bit with some extra practice, extra preparation on what the test is going to look like, et cetera, and get them to move maybe from that 1 to that 2 or that 2 to that 3, so on and so forth. Dr. Smith mentioned the interim assessments. Virtual schools are not allowed per KSTE to use those interim assessments unless we're going to proctor them in person. So our students do not get the chance to practice in the system like they might if they were brick and mortar students. So we have to kind of get creative with how we can prepare them for what the test is going to look like and just all the tools and different things that are available in the system that they test in Kite so that they aren't overwhelmed or just not sure what is what. And so they kind of just pick an answer and move along. So our teachers do a great job of prepping them and showing them different resources and helping them get going and get ready to not be surprised by anything in the platform.
Cassie, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Do you have a general idea of the percentage of kids that like were there last year that are there this year?
It's usually around half.
So you're kind of dealing with a whole different group of kids,
Yes.
pretty much. I mean,
Yeah.
half
And
of
they're
them.
coming from, you know, some were in brick and mortar, some have been homeschooled, some have been moving and so maybe didn't have a complete semester or school year the year before. They're coming in with different backgrounds.
And if I can just bring in real quick, I just want to make sure I'm a little slow sometimes. I just want to, interim assessments don't count for anything, right?
Correct.
So I want to make sure. So the state doesn't want to let students practice and see how they're doing against the state standards.
Unless we proctor them in person, which just,
Okay, like I said, I'm a little slow sometimes. I just want to make sure I understood that. Thank
Yeah.
you.
yep. All right. So ELA, you will see as well, we did improve in all the ways we were trying to improve. Our level 1s went down, our levels 2 through 4 increased, and our levels 3 and 4 increased as well. So continuing to push the kiddos and try different strategies and work with them to improve their reading, get them to read sometimes. A lot of our students, and I'm sure we're seeing this across the board everywhere, like to listen to things. And that is not an option when it comes to the reading passages on the state assessment. So getting them to, pick up a book or a magazine, anything and read it is one of the goals that we have for this school year as well. And then skipping over to science. Also, again, we saw a decrease in level 1s, increase in 2 through 4 and 3 and 4. So going in the right direction, and we are just really working hard to continue that improvement. And hopefully some of the kinks in the logistics of the virtual testing will get resolved this year, which may help a little bit as well.
And just on the English language arts,
Mhm.
are the English language learner students in that cohort that's in there? And do we
Yes.
know about what the size of that is?
For us, it's very small. I
Okay.
believe it was about 9 or 10 last school year.
9 or 10 total. Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Yep. All right. And small N values is kind of the name of the game on the next few slides here. Looking at our ACT composite, this was kind of interesting for me to data dive this way. I'd never put it together like this in a chart, but it varies throughout the year. You can see in 2024, our average or our composite as the school was 20.1, which our N value, we only had 11 students taking the assessment, the ACT. A lot of our students, if not all of them that take it, depends on year to year, take it on the date that the state provides it as their junior year, where they are not having to incur that cost. But we have to proctor that one in person. And so they come on site to the VEC and they take it there. So it is getting exciting because we're getting close to that little room's not going to hold us much longer. So that's good. We have seen an increase in interest in students taking that. And we are having the counselors continue to work with them through their individual plans of study conversations to discuss. Do I need to? Do I not need to? What are the benefits of taking the ACT? What would be the downfalls or the drawbacks of taking it, if any? And kind of helping guide them on making those decisions, and not only if they should or shouldn't take it, but when would be good timing and how can they go about it. I think sometimes they think that they can only take it through us. So making sure that they're aware that they can take it at a local brick and mortar on one of those good old Saturdays, like I'm sure some of us have done in the past, that's still an option to them as well, helping them look for any assistance that they might be able to get with that cost if needed and applicable, et cetera. And then for our advanced placement, again, kind of one that's been up and down over the years, but this last spring, we had 6 students take a total of 8 exams. So it's not a very big end value as far as that goes at our school. We are hoping to grow our advanced placement, the interest in advanced placement courses. We do have a small but mighty group that do enjoy those. We offer, we've always run advanced placement literature and comp and language and comp and APUSH, AP US history. We've tried some AP.io some other years. So we really do kind of look at what the students are interested in planning for the next year and what we can offer them, trying to offer what they would be interested in taking, but it's usually a pretty small group. So next steps, we are going to continue to work on those state testing logistics, especially the virtual side of it. In-person side, it's not pretty. I don't love that the students have to take all of their tests in one day. It just is very difficult to provide multiple days and for us to have people there and all the equipment there for them to come on site, but also for families to get them there day after day. So that's why we do it that way. We continue to use our PLC time on Wednesdays for a variety of activities and items, really looking at aligning our course materials, aligning assessments that we are giving in our courses since we cannot use the interims. And then looking at rigor has been another focus, looking at different things that we're doing throughout the year, activities, assessments, and making sure that it aligns to the rigor that is on the state assessment. So the students, are getting that practice that way. Let's see, we're implementing a new curriculum for K-8 for this aligned to the science of reading. It's UFly. And then one of the things Dr. Teese and I are planning and working on right now is revisiting with our parents the importance of state assessments, what it can tell them and their students, and what it can tell the students' teachers, and what it does for our school. We do have a lot of families opt out. I think we had about 70-ish total. And those are the ones that let us know. We have others that just don't come, either on site or to the virtual assessment time that they've been assigned, and they opt out kind of in that fashion, which would take the number much higher. But getting them to understand that this isn't for a grade, but here's the information that you can get from it. So kind of having that, we're revisiting it and kind of just starting from ground zero again with the parents and learning coaches so that they maybe better understand what the state assessments are. And maybe will help increase our participation rate. I will say participation rate did jump this year. KSVA's had an 88% participation rate, which was the year prior had been 67%. So that was a big increase. And I think pretty much due solely to the virtual option for families. The older kiddos were a little bit harder. We did increase it to 83%, and that was up over 78% the year before. But they are ones that don't necessarily have an adult in the home with them all day, making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. The learning coaches check in maybe more in the evenings or weekends, that kind of thing, which we totally get. But sometimes those high schoolers aren't motivated to log on and take the assessments. So again, we are going to revisit with the learning coaches and parents on that, and also the students as well. And then continue to just let them know how the students are doing. We use a standards-based report card for kindergarten through 5th grade already. They take their Fast Bridge 3 times a year, just like our brick and mortar students do. And we provide that information to the families, talk about talk about that data at conferences with the parents, et cetera. So that is my information for this evening. Do you have any questions? No, you're good.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
All right. Thank you very much.
I did have one question. You're on your graduation rate.
Oh, yes.
It only had to 2023. Did you have a rate for 2024?
We do not yet. So the dropout graduation summary report just opened in October. We have this month to review the list of students that are counting as graduates and non-graduates and basically let the state know if there are any that we don't believe we should be accountable for. We do have a few that we are going to submit. And then once that whole report or that season of life is kind of how I feel about it is done, it closes October 31st. The actual final graduation rate will be released in November-ish, usually is when they put those out. So we think it's going to be very close to what it was this past year, which was 70.5. Of course, always hoping for an increase. So that's what we're going for, but we are working on that right now.
So could you kind of just expand on that a little bit? Like what determining factors are whether that student, like if somebody does not graduate counts as a drop or a negative effect on that graduation rate for you?
Pretty much anything unless they go to another public school in Kansas and are claimed and on several different reports from that new school with that new building number. So the ones I know of that I'm going to submit to the DGSR or to the state on the DGSR are ones that moved out of state. I have evidence that they've moved out of state, but we didn't know they were moving out of state when we exited them. We can't go back and update the exit if it's past a certain point in time, but you can submit that with the evidence that, you know, we have one that moved to Colorado. I have evidence that they went to school and finished up in Colorado. I submit that and they would fall off of our non-graduate list.
So there may be some that are just unaccounted for that you don't know whether the family moved or not,
Yes.
that you could be getting kind of dinged on that.
Yes.
graduation rate.
Yes. There could be families, there are a few that were freshmen. They left us sometime freshman year. Didn't go anywhere else in Kansas that we can find, but we don't know what happened to them. And so we are still the accountable school as far as graduation rate goes for that kiddo, even though we maybe only had them a semester of their freshman year. Also, KSDE considers any student who withdraws from any high school in the state to go to homeschool as a non-graduate when they calculate your graduation rate. Yes. So we do always have a few that maybe have homeschooled, they want to try something different, decide, nope, we like our homeschool ways a little bit better, and they withdraw to go back to that. If they do that in 9th grade year or beyond, they will count against our graduation rate as a non-graduate.
And what's the size of population of, I don't know, what's called the missing unknown? I mean, what number of students are we talking about
I
every
think
year?
I'm looking, oh, that's a good question. I want to say I'm looking at around 50, 60 that I'm digging into.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks for clarifying that.
sure, of course. We did have 196 graduates. Not all of them were cohort 2024, but still 196 students, adults and teens that earned their diploma for 2024. So that's exciting. I like that number a lot better than some of the other numbers I have to look at.
So the 50 or 60 that you're talking about that you're looking at are just for this 1 year's.
It's over all of the years. So it could be, I think it would have started 2021 school year. If they left from any point from 2020 forward, they would be on that list if we don't know where they went. So
At any point, if you find, like if freshmen, I'm thinking they could still be going to school someplace in a different state.
mhm.
Can you find them eventually? If you get word, oh, this person graduated from Michigan, can you?
No, if I don't find them before the 31st, then they just stay on our
Then they
grad
stay.
list. Mhm.
You guys do such great work. So thank you.
Well, thank you. It's a lot of fun to call them and say, hey, what are you up to? So.
Wonderful. Any other questions, Ms. Burton? Thank
Thank you
you.
for your time this evening.
All right, moving on to 8.02 ELL programming.
Yes, we have, tonight our, staff from the English Language Learners Program will be presenting under, the guidance from, our Director of Special Programs, Cindy Jodos. I can tell you that the English Language Learners Program is a program that you seldom hear anything about, but they are very, very important and vital to helping us accomplish our mission, especially in Value One of student success. So I'm going to turn it over to them. They're going to show you everything they do, but I hope that they give you all the trivia question that we talked about, that I talked with them about, to see if y'all really get it right, because that really is, if you get that right, you're going to really understand how important ELL is to USD 230. So I'll turn over to Cindy and her staff.
Hello, good evening. And if you're paying attention, there might be a giveaway on that trivia question that Dr. Luttrell wants me to ask you. So he'd asked us to come and share some information here at the board this evening. And I have two of our ELL teachers with me here, Kathleen Navratil and Tracy Bognich, and Teresa Casper is our ELL parent. She's joined us as well this evening. So, and we are fortunate that we will have a third ELL teacher here starting pretty soon. So we've appreciated that opportunity. Some of the things about ELL services, and I'm just going to give kind of a general overview and kind of just the big picture. It all starts with screening, and screening is an important part. When families are new to our district, they come in and they take what's called a home language survey, and that shows up in that enrollment packet. And so you've maybe even seen that there as you've enrolled your students. So they take that. It shows if there's a language spoken in the home besides English. With that. And so then those students are identified. Our teachers, then our ELL teachers then screen them using the KELPA screener. And when they look at that screener, those scores that show that student as being at beginning or intermediate levels then become eligible for services. An important point to note is that parents can waive those services. And as you look at this data here, you'll notice that our numbers have more in the last really 3 fiscal school years have increased dramatically. And those are students that have to be screened, and they have to be screened in person. And our 2 teachers are the ones who go and do that with them as they do that. So if you'll notice this year we had about 62. The thing you do have to know about ELL numbers is I can give you numbers today. And even as I was in here looking at this today, I would have changed numbers on here from when I put this on your board docs, because our numbers just kind of go up and down at any moment in time. And that's a pretty variable number with that, with our population with that. But overall, regardless of that variability, our numbers continue on those trend lines to increase.
Cindy, just to kind of clarify, so that 62 number, that will just continue to rise as
Right
people
now,
come in?
It could. Right now, there were about 62, actually probably a little bit more than 62 even, that needed to be screened. As students come in, they may need to be screened as they come in. So that could be if we look.
So all
for
the way till
whole-
May?
Yep.
Right,
Whole
okay.
fiscal year, that number.
Every month.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and just on those screening, are those new students or is that re-screen? Because I don't.
Those are new. They are new to our district.
Okay. Thank
And
you.
Cindy, parents may choose to waive
Mhm.
services, right?
Right.
So those that choose to waive the services, does that put extra strain then on the system?
Oh, potential. It could potentially. It just means those students aren't getting some of that targeted support from our ELL teachers and that additional support. It would mean that their teachers in their classrooms or any of those intervention teachers might be
Carrying the
working to
load.
provide any of that additional support. Jump in, yes.
I would just say.
And they are
with the-
here to jump into. I've told them just jump in.
With the
So,
screening process, when a family would want to decline our services, when a family would want to decline our services, we do like to reach out to them and call home and explain the process to them on what they would be missing out if they did not receive our services. And that is very beneficial, just to explain what we do and what it would look like. Because no matter what, even if they do not take our services, they will still be required to take the state KELPA at the end of the year, which is measuring their English language proficiency. That makes sense?
absolutely. So some of our areas where we've seen that growth too, like we said, the early childhood at Sheila Early Childhood Center, that's probably where our numbers have really increased. A little bit later in the presentation, you'll see some numbers that we've done, I think at least 10 newcomers there this year. And then like Kathleen said, screenings every month there. So as students come in, so what those services look like are an individual plan of study. You'll also see this called an individual learning plan because we like to throw down those acronyms, as many as we can possibly get here. So either one, IPS or ILP, you'll see both of those. What it includes is really that portrait of the student's language ability, any of the support that needs to be provided, accommodations, how many minutes of language instruction then is provided by that ELL teacher, and then any individual growths for the language study. Note that those services, they utilize the Kansas Proficiency Standards. So they have standards that they work from when they're providing those services and what they need to entail. That KELPA then is given in the spring. Interesting caveat about the KELPA, it's given in person and it's given by our teachers, and our teachers have to score it within districts. So again, time intensive with that. And they've done, just trying to think. One of the challenges is being multiple buildings, multiple places, multiple time, trying to fit all of that schedule inside of that testing window with that. So students who do score proficient then move to what's called monitoring status for 2 years. So once a student scores proficient, they still monitor and they still go in and check in. And can you tell them just briefly, what does a monitoring typically look like?
Monitoring, what I do, I actually try to just, when I see a teacher, and I go in there and I see how is the student doing, and is there anything that I need to know? I communicate with emails, documenting like that. It's not too intensive.
One of the things with the KELPA, there are 4 domains within the KELPA, and those domains cover those domains of language: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And then when we look at those scores, we look at they are scored in 4 levels: that beginning, that early intermediate, and early advanced. If obviously students in the beginning and the early intermediate and even the intermediate are receiving ELL supports with that. So some data over time, as we look at our ELL numbers of students over time, you'll notice some pretty significant increases, have really more than tripled since fiscal year 20. That would be when I started here in our district. And if you look, significant numbers with that. Our monitoring has stayed fairly stagnant with that, but the numbers of students receiving ELL services has grown. And that trend line, if we look at that, just continues to increase with that, and that would be expected. Number of languages over time, and actually I could update. I know, it's right there. So if you're paying attention, however, what you don't know is I went in there today and I would have updated that number to be 27 at this point, so.
I would have thought 4, 5, maybe to see 23, now 27 different languages that are the common one in the home across just the district. I'd never, it was really my eye-opening. And then actually when they can actually, she'll show you the actual, what each of those 27 languages are.
If you look over time, you'll notice that our number of languages has doubled over time. So this view is just another overview of just kind of that information that you can see longitudinally over time here. On fiscal year, if you look at the number of teachers, I've got 3 in parentheses because we have Alex Kunkel at the high school who is ELL endorsed, and he's helped us out at the high school the last few years. And then we were able just recently to hire our 3rd ELL teacher. Alex still continues to help us out, but it'll take some of that off of him so he can focus on some high school intervention with that too. So if you've noticed, numbers of schools have increased. We've kept those 2 teachers, and they have been diligently moving between multiple buildings with that. As I said, you see number of languages. Those non-English speakers are the number of students who come in. Typically, they're called newcomers, and newcomers are new to a district within their first 6 to 9 months of school. And newcomers typically do not have English when they come in. So, and that's been a significant increase for us. In fact, I would update that number from when I did this to actually be 19 at this point for newcomers for this year. So when I first did this table, we were kind of at that estimate of where we were, and as we've screened in, we're about at 19, and 10 of which we know were at the Early Childhood Center. So overall, those numbers of students have increased. Numbers of newcomers have increased. Those kiddos needing screening have increased as well. Number of buildings served, as you can see, has increased. Some of the challenges have been having our number of teachers moving between those buildings. Other challenges have just been having that decreased time to really provide those services, because if you're traveling between buildings and increasing your numbers, that's hard to get those services in. So other challenges, we know our community continues to grow. We know that we have some manufacturing. We know we have some other businesses coming into our community, which always can attract additional families. So current languages, this is just an overview of our current languages that we have here in our district.
On the current languages, are there one or two that are kind of the main ones and then the others are kind of one-off here and there, or are they like, it's all over the board?
Right now, it kind of depends on the year. Right now, Spanish is probably our largest group with that. I don't know, our second largest, probably our other areas. Amharic is probably our second largest group. So, but again, that can depend on year and time with that. So.
Cindy, just digging in on those numbers. So everybody up here, they're responsible for 46 kiddos, it sounds like, a piece, if I'm again mathing the math. With a 92 total, but 62 are new. So that means only 30 students are carryovers, or am I reading this wrong?
No.
And this is,
Yep.
I don't understand, so I.
62 would need to be screened, and it would depend on their results of that screener if they would become students who were in need of services, because they could be screened and show proficient. They're just new to our district. And I don't know, it probably depends on the likelihood. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. And I hate that that's a kind of a general answer, but it just kind of depends. And it can depend from time to time. So that's where numbers are kind of, I can do the best I can to give you some numbers, but they can really be deceptive and even kind of jump all over with that.
So that means that's 77 distinct student interactions a piece for you, is what it sounds like. So in total,
I have about 50 students to say. It depends.
it depends. I like to get into numbers, and where it kind of gets down to is, man, that's a lot of responsibility. So thank you. That's where I was really trying to get to.
Thank you. Scheduling is fun when you have that many students.
So, well, we stand for any other additional questions. So we appreciate your time. And I guess trivia question, if you're paying attention, Dr. Luttrell told you, what was it? We were at 27.
I'll just say, Cindy, it's impressive because I'm with Dr. Luttrell. If somebody would have asked me just, hey, how many do you think? I would have said 5, 7 tops. But I will say this too. I've been noticing some of the ethnic growth within the district, and it's interesting to hear some of the reasons for why they're moving to Spring Hill School District. And it's for all the reasons you want to hear in an answer from a parent. And it has to do with the education, the awards that the schools have been winning, and the performance of our students. So my hat's off to you.
We did have a really nice video, and we chose not to share it simply because as our numbers change, our technology and our things change, and thanks in big part to our technology department. One of our teachers at the high school, now it's more than one, it's at least 2, I think right now, has really worked with PowerPoint Live and created opportunities for students to see the PowerPoint, and on their iPads, it's translating into their home language. So they're being able to interact, have this in English, have it in their home language, and being able to see and have that. The video we had, it was actually on the teacher's screen, but even in just a few short days, that's already evolved. So who knows, if I would have shown you that tonight, it could be outdated by tomorrow, because we continue, and our teachers really have worked hard to come up with some innovative ideas of working to help support students. So
I don't want to assume anything, but are there other challenges that you're seeing besides just the language with families coming into the district that are, I mean, I'm sure there's challenges that the school can't meet, but are there challenges that you're having issues meeting that, you know, something that we do or something administratively could help with?
Yeah, a challenge that comes to mind is when especially a new family comes in that doesn't know any English and getting them enrolled. They might not even have internet at home, so technology or any of that component is definitely a challenge. So it takes a big team to set them up for success in their school.
I think sometimes there are some cultural differences that we are not always aware of and not as responsive to, that we might have an idea in our minds that we think it's one thing and it's really not that. We look at it through our own lens instead of being a little bit more culturally aware of what that could mean in somebody else's culture. So I think that's always a challenge. I've always appreciated when I've observed in these two teachers' classrooms, they do a nice job of making sure that our students see themselves in that classroom. They see images, they see things that they know, hey, I belong here. This is a part of where I am. Because sometimes we don't always see that in other areas if we're new to that area. So I think that's a tremendous strength that both of these teachers have. And I'm sure our new teacher will be having that strength and joining them as well. So.
Thank you for all the, I mean, thank you.
And thank you to our
It's
para too, who does all that translating for our high school students, non-English speakers too. She does a lot of our work too. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, moving on to 8.03.
Madam President, can I maybe move for just a really quick break? I don't need sports scores, but
Sure, yes, let's
Thank-
take a 5-minute break.
5 minutes. Thanks.
And it's still 0-0.
Like I told John, Taylor Swift is in the house.
Well, yeah.
Educated people. Yeah.
All right, we are back in session. And we are moving on to 8.03 student cell phone usage presentation.
Yes, we have, as you all know, the cell phone use by students in schools definitely has continued to generate a lot of discussion on both sides of the aisle. The state of Kansas is currently in the middle of a blue ribbon task force that's brought educators and some state board of education members and other individuals together to try to hopefully make some recommendations at some point. We did include some of that information in your packet and on board docs to just kind of kept you up to date with that. But as far as specifically for USD 230, you might recall back in 2022, spring of 2022, that there was some foresight made and there were some adjustments made at that time to kind of tighten up, clarify the cell phone use policy, especially for grades 6 through 12. And then the board has requested, that kind of with all the talk, what is our current cell phone use like in terms of what feedback are we hearing from students? What are we hearing from teachers? What's the data telling us since we made the change in 2022? And so here this evening to share some insight on that, as well as perhaps maybe get some additional, questions and clarification from each of you are Mr. Williams from Spring Hill High School and Mr. Meek from Spring Hill Middle School, Ms. Sly, as well as Mr. Carter, both, had obligations with activities that we are represented. So I'm going to turn over to them and let them kind of share with you just some information they feel that they have that's important to kind of give to you all to make you aware of on the cell phone discussion. So, Mr. Williams.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you, Dr. Luttrell. Appreciate it. Here tonight to talk to you a little bit about cell phone usage. Mr. Meek is here to kind of answer any questions you might have about middle schools. I'll be glad to present the data that we accumulated from the high school and also from the middle schools. I hope the data is accurate from the middle schools because I had to combine the three schools together, and sometimes math is not my strong point. And so if it doesn't look right, you can blame it on me, but we'll see how it goes. So I sent out a survey to my teachers last week. I did not collect names, so I don't know what teachers filled out the survey. Based on the 3 of the 4 objectives, the top 3 objectives, feedback from school staff on whether policies are working, office referrals received related to cell phones, attempted pilot cell phone procedures, and how cell phones being used to engage student instruction. And then I'll talk a little bit about e-hall pass. I think there's maybe some clarification I can give the e-hall pass. Also, all 3 of the middle schools use e-hall pass also too. So we go from there. Basically review the handbook. This is what is in our handbook regarding electronic devices. I can tell you at the beginning of last year and also beginning this year, because this is year 2 for this same policy that we've had in the handbook. We meet with our students the first week of school, myself and the 3 assistant principals, and we go over some of the highlights of the handbook. And this is the one that I always like to talk about. So they hear straight from my mouth about basically your cell phones are put away when it's in the building. They shouldn't be out unless the teacher gives you permission to have the cell phones out. And we could talk a little bit about clarification on some of that stuff. They are allowed to have their cell phones out before school, after school, during passing period, and then during lunchtime, as long as they're not hindering the educational environment that we're trying to have here at Spring Hill High School. And this is the exact same policy that we have for the 3 middle schools with that. So as you can see from my first questions, I had 56 teachers respond. We have 76 certified teachers on staff. So I had 20 choose not to respond to the survey during the time frame that I had open. This data was collected last week, so it's kind of fresh in the mind. I was just curious, wondering, they call themselves the cell phone police, or we could talk about cell phone police. How much time are you actually having to spend in your class each hour? Or do you feel like you're wasting to remind the students about cell phones, so put away wherever you need to do with that? And so you can roughly see, if my math is correctly, I'm not as good as Mr. Chitwood, I don't think. 82% of my staff is kind of where 25% or below, with the majority of the high school staff with the 53.6% that they feel like they just have to give the one reminder or whatever at the beginning of the hour, and the kids put it away for that. That is for the high school. You can see this is the middle school. Like I said, I combined the information I got from the 3 middle schools. I can't tell you how large their staffs are, so I'm not quite sure how much response, but we're still around the 50 teacher response between the 3 schools. So you have an idea of what we're looking at for that. And you can obviously see overwhelmingly on their percentage, 79% say 0 to 10% they're having to spend during their instructional time enforcing cell phones with that. The next one was, and I need to clarify a little bit, have you filled out a DR if you had to bring a cell phone down to the office with that? Just so you know our expectations, a teacher, and I've made this very clear, any adult in the building can take your cell phone away. It could be a parent that's in there, it could be a sub, it could be myself if I'm doing observation, whatever, if it's out in the class when it's not supposed to be out, without teacher permission during that time with that. And so you can see that 83.9% of the high school teachers that responded said they haven't had to bring a cell phone down to the office or fill out a DR. And so the first time they bring it down to the office, it is kept in the office and the student can pick it up at the end of the day. The second time it is brought down to the office and then a parent has to pick it up at the end of the day and have a meeting with an administrator. The third offense is when they get to a DR at the high school level. And that's when we're starting to talk about suspension, the removal of a cell phone. The DR we've had is 1. That didn't get to level 3. That was an individual making a very bad decision when the teacher took the cell phone away at level 1, if that makes sense. And so the DR was related to the cell phone, but it wasn't because this is their 3rd cell phone violation. We've had a total of 16 cell phones brought down to the office since the first day of school. You can see it broken down by grade level. Looks like I need to keep on talking to my sophomores a little bit when it comes to cell phones, but that is kind of where we're at with the high school. And I think Mark can clarify a little bit about the middle school because maybe I interpreted their data a little wrong or misconstrued some of the information with that. So this is the middle school information collected together. You can see that they said discipline referral had to bring a cell phone down. 65% of the respondents said they had to do that at the middle school level, and 35% said they have not at the middle school level. And do you want to clarify any of that information or talk a little bit about that?
The only thing I would add is we don't have a whole lot of issues with it, but when we are, the teachers are following the procedures and bringing them down to the office. So when they say they might have, we might have a very small amount of teachers having issues, but when they're having issues, they are following the protocol and bringing them down. So it looks worse than what it actually is, if that makes sense. The slide before, it says majority of them aren't having issues, which it holds true. It just, when they do, they're holding the kids' feet to the fire and bringing it down, if that makes sense. I have not had a discipline referral at my building this year for a cell phone.
So the next slide talks about what are we trying to pilot. I have 16 teachers using what we call the shoe caddy, shoe holders in their classrooms. I would say, I don't know particularly what all 16 teachers, I would say I probably have about 8 teachers still continue to do this. I have talked to one of the teachers that tells the students either put it in the shoe caddy or keep it in your bag. It's not coming out. And so you would probably see about 50-50 of the students, some put it in the shoe caddy, some put it in their bag. It depends on whether they want to know that's close to them or one that they can still visually see that that's my cell phone. I still know where my cell phone's at with some of that. So I gathered some of the comments from teachers actually piloting the shoe caddy. The ones who are actually doing it have had some pretty positive experiences, to be honest with you. The kids haven't really fought back. I think what we learned from high school kids and probably from middle school kids, it's been a long time since I've worked from middle school kids. If you lay down the expectation from day one and they know that you're serious about this, they're going to follow it and they're going to understand these expectations. And these teachers have noticed, like one of them, this is how I use to take attendance. Now I know not all kids have cell phones. And so I have to understand what kid's sitting at desk 13, if their cell phone's empty, but there's somebody there, they don't have a cell phone, and we go with some access with that. So that is some of the quotes. We've gone with some of the shoe caddy stuff. We had a long discussion about this as a staff at the beginning of the school year. And we felt like it was just the right time to have some departments or some teachers willing to try it out. A lot of my social studies teachers are doing this right now. And so they could probably give some more feedback on some of the stuff before we said, hey, let's try something like this school-wide. But this is kind of where we're at with the Shoe Caddy. Gathering some information from the middle schools. A lot of them aren't trying some of these pilot things. A lot of them are just, hey, the cell phones are put away, period. That's the way we're rolling here with the times with some of that stuff, unless you know of anybody at Spring Hill Middle School. So this next one.
Mr. Williams,
Yeah,
I just
go
have a
ahead.
quick question. Do you think that maybe some of the types of classes would lend themselves more to this than others? Like, I mean, math, you got to be sitting there where the discussion things more can maybe be people drift a little bit more, or?
Yeah, probably that's a great question. When it comes to the math, I think there's some math teachers that, and we can get to that to the next slide, that use their cell phones for calculators. I know that we have gizmos on our iPads. And so that has some calculation devices on there that kids can utilize with that aspect on that too. But I can definitely see a discussion like a social studies type class where you're leading more of a discussion. A shoe caddy might be more relevant than another thing. So this next one is kind of interesting, and I wasn't quite sure the direction or what I would hear back from the staff, because I'll be honest with you, I think our technology department does a tremendous job doing and providing us the necessary tools that we need to have for our classes. And they have to keep kids safe, and they have to make sure that data is not being collected by other things, and we're following all the laws and all this stuff. And so I was intrigued, like, what are they really using cell phones for enhanced student engagement? And I'll be honest with you, probably not a whole lot, to be honest with you, when you look at some of the data, and I can go explain into it. Because I did not collect names, I'm not sure exactly what teachers respond to what. So I don't know exactly what apps they're using that are not available on the iPad. But that's on my agenda to talk next to my staff, is to find out what are these apps that we're missing with. So then I can sit down with Dr. Smith and Mr. Elliott and Billy, Mr. Terry, and figure out there's something we need to do on our end to take care of some of this stuff. The research, this is quick, and sometimes patience isn't a virtue for sometimes adults and students. There's some websites that are just plain blocked by the filter, and they think they need it for research. So they just probably use their phones with teacher permission to do a little research on their Safari or whatever device they have, and do some of their research with that. The other, listen to some of my teachers, a lot of them allow, or some of them allow students to listen to music during work time. And so they can connect their earphones, their AirPods or AirPods, whatever it is, and listen to music while they're doing some work. And so that's some of the other stuff. And you can see overwhelmingly, no, not allowing cell phones out during instructional time. So that means during the 50-minute class period, those kids are not allowed to have some of their cell phones out during that time. I think you'll see on the middle school level, even more coming around with not allowing cell phones out. I don't know the breakdown of some of this stuff also, because I'm just getting the information from the middle schools on some of the apps. So I think that could be something that maybe Mr. Meek, Mr. Carter, and Mrs. Sly and I can talk about, and see if there's anything we need to talk to Dr. Smith and Mr. Liley about with some of that stuff. With some of that. So that's kind of what we see, or the teachers are saying that, yep, this is what we allow students to use their cell phones for if we get to some of that stuff. I did provide you, because I don't think my next one really deals with cell phones that much. I did provide you with some quotes from the staff. I'm like, okay, why don't you give me some feedback and just let me know what you're thinking. I had 26 people out of the 56 that took the survey write down some comments. I didn't want to put them all on slides, so I just had Rachel ask to provide you guys a copy so you can read them. I've had the opportunity to read them. I know teaching is a hard profession as it is, and we keep on asking our teachers to do a lot more without taking some stuff off their plate. Some of them are saying I'm spending a lot of time. Some are said, hey, I've been pretty clear from day one. We haven't really had an issue. Some have seen improvement throughout the years of what cell phones are like to be with some of the stuff. And so I will let you take a look at that and digest their comments. And definitely, if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to reach out to myself when it comes to some of those with that. The next one is e-hall pass. And so I think what you could be hearing is probably not accurate. The students don't need to have their cell phones to use e-hall pass. Okay. The students do not have to have their phones to use e-hall pass. E-hall pass is a web-based system that Phil has worked hard with to make it a single sign-on for our kids, so their school login and password to go to it. It is a great tool for teachers and administrators. I don't know if the students are really high of it, but what it does is they pick a location of where they're going, a restroom, and what class they're in, and then they leave, and it starts a timer. Okay, so we're aware as administrator, I have a dashboard on my screen that has it. And I could tell you right now, today, we had 437 hall passes created from eHall Pass. But think about it. We have a student body of over 1,100, with some of that stuff. And so it tells me who's the student, where they're going, and how long they've been gone. And then once it's past 10 minutes, it turns to yellow. And yellow to me is like a little caution, like, wonder what's going on here. And then maybe they need to check on it. And that's kind of when Mark gets up and kind of takes a walk around the halls and kind of strolls by some of the locations. And if it's a red, we're all on a search looking for the student to make sure they're okay, health-wise or whatever's going on, just to make sure. And that turns red to us. I think I have the timer after 20 minutes with some of that stuff. Sometimes it turns red because the student has forgotten to end the pass or the teacher's forgotten to end the pass. And so when I walk by the class and I see little Mark Williams sitting there in the front row taking his notes, I can end that pass to make sure everything's okay with some of that stuff. And so that's just kind of overview of eHall Pass. I'll be glad to go into a little bit more details about it or show you guys sometime what eHall Pass looks like. But just to reiterate, all this can be done on the student iPads because it's a web-based. They don't have to have their cell phones to activate eHall Pass. That's why I think some people might be hearing a little bit of misinformation. Mr. Meek, do you have anything you want to add for eHall Pass or anything?
No, it's a wonderful tool. You can't argue with the data that's in front of you. So, and he's exactly right. iPad does it all.
I have a question on the eHall Pass.
Sure.
So are students allowed to take their cell phone with them if they leave for the ePass?
So here's the deal. If they're left in their bag and they're two caddies, that's what we tell them. Kids are smart. Okay. Kids are going to take their cell phones. If I see them in the hallway, I'm like, hey, do you have teacher permission to have your phone out here in the hallway? I don't catch every kid, to be honest with you. So I would say, yes, some kids take their phones with them because that's their chance to do whatever they need to do. But some kids do obey our expectations and do not keep the phones and make sure that your phones are where they're supposed to be with that stuff.
Is that the same in the middle school, Mr. Meek?
Yeah, exactly. The expectation is that they would stay in the room, but I'll be honest, like I have my cell phone. If they walk out, I'm probably not going to catch it and they're going to go out and be a kid.
I try to just be blunt with them. Says really gross to take a phone into the bathroom, but that's just.
Yeah, back when you had an actual pass that you gave them, you could exchange the cell phone for the pass.
Yeah.
But now with the eHall Pass.
This is for us as administrators is really nice to be able to see teacher passes. This is a time saver for teachers. So they don't have to write a pass. We have a setup that a few locations can actually be auto passes. So a teacher doesn't have to approve it, but other than that, a teacher has to approve the pass before they can go out. That is what I have as far as regarding cell phones and eHall Pass. I'll be glad to answer any questions, some information I need to come back with, or any other additional questions you might have what I presented, or regarding the high school or Mr. Meek when it comes to the middle schools.
Mr. Viz, I don't want to characterize for you, but what it sounds like is we're not having territorial fights over possession of phone between students and teachers. Is that accurate, with the one exception?
Correct.
That, hey, when it's done, hand it over.
Yep.
And so it's not turning into
Correct.
Just custody battle.
Just had, and I wouldn't even necessarily say it was a custody battle. We just had a bad day. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I guess my just question for both of you is, are cell phones a problem for your staff?
Here's the deal. You read some of their comments and some teachers are going to say, yes, they're a problem. but that's 26 teachers that took the time to write those comments. I don't have a whole lot of teachers busting my door down saying, we got to correct this, we got to fix this. Cell phones isn't anything different than tardies or unexcused absence that we deal. In fact, I'll be honest with you, we probably deal more as administrators with tardies and unexcused absences than we ever have with a cell phone violation.
Right.
To be honest with you.
I think there's a lot of benefits to teaching the students to be responsible with their cell phones at this age, because it's a skill that just like showing up on time, just like turning stuff in on time, right? I know teachers don't want to be homework police, but you learn those lessons now and it's a skill you carry with you for the rest of your life. And I feel like cell phones are probably, unfortunately, something that teachers feel like they're policing, but they're teaching these kids important lessons.
And I would agree. I think I had one comment from a teacher on there, and I'm not sure, not a big fan of cell phones, but I understand we need to prepare the kids for what's next and teach them responsibilities.
That's right. And you catch me on another day and I might be like, ban the cell phones. I'm tired of seeing them, right? But you know, for most, the more rational April is appreciates those lessons.
And it sounds like, you know, there's some frustration with other digital devices and digital distractions, whether they be AirPods or whatever. Do you feel like you have the policy to cover?
So I think we have the same one. You know, they're not expected to have AirPods in unless they have teacher permission, say if they have headphones. That's harder because hair likes to cover the ears. And I'm not going to allow teachers to go up and pull the hair back to see if there's an AirPod, you know what I mean, or something like that. So that's a little bit harder on the AirPods. There's always seems to be one in and one out so they could hear what's going on. So yeah, that's probably a little bit harder. I think a teacher made a comment about the AirPods is probably even more difficult than it is the cell phones right now because they're just so small. And there's some now that actually just look like they're right inside your ear and you don't see anything coming out.
Sure. But do you feel like the board's giving you policy to be able to deal with all those and there's
absolutely
no gray area?
It's pretty cut and dry. Unless you have teacher permission, this stuff is not in your ear, your cell phone's not out. Yeah.
And I would just add from the middle school level, like when we have things turned in, we're taking, as part of our spreadsheet is, was it a cell phone? Was it a watch or was it earbuds? And we've had watches and earbuds turned in this year, along with cell phones. It's still cell phones more than the others, but all in all, we're treating them the same. And the tools are there and they appear to be working very well. But just like Mr. Williams said, like with tardies, I have some of the same kids that are tardy. So sometimes those are the same kids. If you have somebody that has a cell phone issue, it's the same kid that you might have a cell phone issue with again. So if I was to say I had a DR or 3 DRs for a cell phone, it could literally be those kids that we just continue to have to try to educate on how to proper use another device that we have, and there'll be more to come in the years to come.
Okay.
I can't tell you the 16 cell phones we've had brought down, not a single student's had their cell phone brought down for a second time.
That's good. On those 16, so getting to that information, are you tracking that through Skyward through our?
We as administrators keep track of that. And we also have a spreadsheet that teachers fill out and say, hey, I brought little Mark Williams' cell phone down to the office. We have a place where they're collected in the office. And so then we can see the students coming in at the end of the day to say, hey, I'm Mark Williams. I'm here to pick up my cell phone. So yeah, we keep track of that information. Not in Skyward, but we have a Google Doc.
You want to be able to track it in Skyward?
I think what we have now is good enough.
Okay.
With that.
Okay.
I have a question for both of you. Have you seen an improvement in focus and behavior this year with the more stricter policy?
So this is year 2 that we've had this policy. We've had this policy for like a year and maybe 9 weeks or something like that. I could say we've had a lot less cell phone issues. Whether I think you could, that's a great question. I don't know if I can give you that answer immediately right now. I might have to talk more to my staff if they see more focus from kids within the classroom with that stuff. I'd be curious about the teachers that are actually piloting the shoe caddy to see if they've actually seen a lot more focus from the kids, because the phone's away from them and they don't have the temptation to reach to try to grab that phone. So I would have to get back with you on that information as a high school.
And I don't feel like I can give you a good answer either. Dynamics have changed in my building over the past year, just with the change in student population. And obviously this is my third year here, so I mean, I don't have a whole lot to go off beforehand. I can tell you what I feel. I feel like it's going well. Obviously, there's always room for improvements, but as far as to give you an exact, I don't feel like I could give you a good answer to that.
Okay, so I have a couple questions. This is year 2 and I think it was exciting, and some of this came about at teacher requests, and you guys actually formulated the handbook policy. So do you feel like, and this is my opinion, but I felt like it gave more restriction, but not only that, it gave you structure to punish or consequences, like it gave you structure so you could, like, everyone knew the expectations from the get-go.
Correct.
Do you feel like that policy where it is now is enough to support you in what you guys need?
I personally do, because it gives a very clear outline of the expectations of cell phone. There's no gray. It's very black and white. So it doesn't pit a teacher versus a teacher, if that makes sense, or an administrator versus administrator. We all look at the same way. This is very cut and dry. Unless you give them permission, they can't have it out, with some of that. So do I feel like this cell phone policy is working? Yeah, it's working because it gives us some structure that we can go with some of that stuff. And we aren't really having a whole lot of issues with it within the classrooms as far as seeing cell phones being brought down and repeat offenders and everything else like that. But I think what I appreciate about this policy is we had an open-ended one. We really didn't have a true cell phone policy. It's kind of like, well, if a teacher tells you put it away, or something like that. This at least defines the parameters, and it gives us our little fence that we need to operate within.
I should go first once, that way I can say, I don't really have anything to add. I mean, it does. I feel like it gives us the structure. It gives us the expectations, and it's hard to argue with expectations as a kid, as a student, they know what the expectations are, and it's kind of hard to argue that. And I don't know if I've had any real conversations with parents other than, the times they've had to come in, and the ones I've had have majority been supportive and they understand. So
do you see, as you pilot, are you piloting the caddies too? I think the middle school is just like away.
we
right?
don't, we actually had a teacher that wanted to use it, but the logistics of the classroom didn't really, just the configuration. They wanted to put it next to the door, and that probably wasn't the best avenue because a student could just get up and run and go with it. Or if you're not watching, but we're having conversations and we're open to it, but it just didn't work out with the classroom.
Do you think that at the high school, the caddy, are you planning to expand that? Because I think, did it start in the spring and you had maybe?
I think we had 2 teachers pilot or try it last spring. We have obviously 16 teachers that tried it at the beginning of the school year. I would say we're down a little bit on consistently using the shoe caddy. Like I said, some teachers have gone to, it's either the shoe caddy or it's in your bag. That's what you got to do right now. With some of that, what I've heard talking to those teachers is very effective. But it's very effective because they were straightforward to them on day one, and the expectation was laid out and is repeated. And that's just the way it works when it comes to students. If they understand your expectations, they're going to follow it. They're going to find the little wiggle room to try to break it. But if you're consistent, then they'll understand, like, whoa, they're not joking around on this. It's going to go into the shoe caddy. So it comes down to, can the person run the classroom just be consistent from day one and keep it going and keep on having that expectation that phone goes in the shoe caddy?
So you're not hoping that everybody utilizes it. You still want it to be.
I think what it's going to do is it's going to lead a discussion to our staff, probably in begin the year, because I can't remember when we come to the district office with handbook recommendations. I think you guys like to approve those in the spring. So it'd come down to our staff to have a discussion whether this is something that we want to utilize with that. But even the way the policy is written, that takes care of the shoe caddy. It doesn't have to be phased anything completely different. This is just a Spring Hill expectation that we're going to provide our teachers that this is the shoe caddy that we're going to put funds in.
And so my last question is about parents. When we first, were presenting this, there was push at some point for an even more stricter cell phone policy. The parent feedback that I received back then was absolutely not, no way.
Yeah.
And I've kind of seen a parent change a little bit because I think they're frustrated with cell phone use too. Do you feel like parents are fine when they have to come pick it up, which it sounds like maybe
We haven't had anybody this
supportive
year.
of this?
We had 2 last year, I believe was the total number. It was like on one hand, and those parents were very supportive and they understood. And so we haven't had any pushback from any parents saying you can't take my kid's cell phone away from them or anything else like that. I think once again, like students, if they understand your expectations and you don't deviate from them, they're going to understand this is what the expectation is at Spring Hill schools for the cell phones. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
Sorry,
absolutely.
First, no, you're good. So we have had a few more have to come pick them up. And a majority of the parents, when you call them, they'll say, they support what's going on and they know that their child should, abide by the rules. I can't say that I haven't had a parent upset because I have, but they're upset just in general because they have to. It's an inconvenience, which is okay. Probably one of the issues that we've had a little bit more is just the students forgetting to come get him at the end of the day. And then we did have an instance where that end of the day was on a Friday and they didn't get him till the next week, and there was some upset over that. But again, the policy was in place, it worked, and the expectation's there. And that wasn't even where the parent had to come get it. It was just the student just forgot, and which is surprising.
Well, thank you. I think this was good information. Any other questions? Yes, thank you guys very much. Okay. I'm sorry, my agenda is pulling up. Okay, moving on to, I'm so sorry, guys, I've lost my, oh, yes, 8.04 KSB voting delegate.
Again, and this is just, again, usually every year, whenever the Kansas School Board Association has their annual conference, they have a meeting where they have those in attendance, each school district can send one representative and they vote upon what essentially is going to be the legislative platform that the KSB will advocate for during the legislative session from January through April, May. Typically, since we have attended that for many years, the district has always designated one of the members that's going to be in attendance. It doesn't specify it has to be like a member that served any length of time. It's up to the individual local board to determine who that individual would be. And so with that meeting coming up, in a little over a month, we would need this evening or very soon, we need to kind of declare who that person might be to be the delegate.
I guess I would suggest, Nicole, if you're gonna go and you want to do it, to have it be our board president, unless somebody else just is dying to do it.
Yeah, I think that historically, I don't even think we've ever talked about it. I think it's just always been that person. But I thought it would be great for everyone to know what that this is a option or whatever. And if anyone is dying to do it, please speak up. I don't think anything's off the table. So
I'm absolutely not dying to do it. But maybe we can talk at some point a little bit about the proposals that are being changed and see if we can come up with a consensus on how we want the delegate to vote at some point.
yeah, I think that's a great idea. it sounds like there's just one change that it's here. There also was, a KASB forum. Is that what you would call it? They talked about what they were supporting this year as far as during session. And Doug and myself and Dr. Luttrell went and, it was interesting to hear some of it. I think that I wonder if, I think I still have all the handouts from that. I'm sure we can get it from them and share with everyone what they hope to push.
I think they also, because anybody can sign up for their KSB Advocacy Network. And then they have kind of a webinar every once a week during the legislative session. I think even if you're not 100% on board with all the things they're supporting or not supporting, it is a good way to track some of the legislation because it moves so wonky. Like sometimes it moves really fast, sometimes it doesn't get out of committee, and it's so hard to keep up with the different legislation that you're looking at. So there's that. And then just the other thing on this topic that I'd like to mention is, since there's a lot of new board members here, if anybody's interested in being part of the KSB leadership, they're always, it seems to me like having a hard time getting enough people to serve in those regional offices and then to be because sometimes people will be elected and then they don't win their election and then they aren't able to serve in their office. So if you have that interest, it is a real way to have a voice specifically for our district on these issues at a state level.
So that is one thing. If you click on here, that's the one thing that delegate is voting for, is changing how the president and all of that is, it's not open nomination anymore. So that's what they're changing. So it's going to be selected by the board of directors is what they're suggesting. Anyways, I'm open to anyone doing it. So don't everyone raise your hand at once.
I think we all did 1, 2, 3, not it. And
Or voluntold. I think you voluntold me earlier. Okay. But
Sharon did it first.
I would, I will definitely take part in that. So thank you. All right, moving on to future discussion items. I think, so we saw a day in the life of an SRO. Did anyone have further questions on that they'd like to ask at another discussion period? Can we take it off the list?
Yeah, I'm good to see it drop. I will say and maybe I'm just looking out for it more, but I have seen the SROs so much on the premises walking. Sharon will tell you, I'm walking our neighborhoods quite often. I see her a lot. And I can't think of a walk where I haven't seen an SRO in a parking lot or out greeting kids. So that video was amazing. I thought it was fun, but it's also what I'm seeing just as being a parent in the district. So.
Any thoughts on removing it?
Yeah, no, I'm going to second what April has said because, and I was going to comment on the presentation earlier. It's just a special group of people, really. It's interesting to me that, these people are trained to throw themselves in front of any type of impending danger. And you grow up seeing them as, defenders of the public. And when you get to know our SROs, you really realize how human they are. And the interaction that they have with the kids is just absolutely phenomenal. And the respect that they build there is phenomenal. The only thing I would add, and we've talked about this before, is I do think I would like to see, and how we do it is to be determined, I guess, but maybe it's that, Sharon, you and I were talking about it and you said it was 2014 the last time it had been done. And it was for them to come in and basically kind of go through an emergency an emergency readiness for public meetings and things like that. It was kind of a manifestation of the thing we attended at the Johnson County Sheriff's Office last week. So that's the only thing I would add, but the SRO thing, I think, yeah, we've satisfied that in my opinion.
Yeah, and I agree completely with Doug, and I'm wondering if we just make it a sub point of the security risk assessment.
Yeah.
And roll it up under that,
Yeah, that works.
but as its own point, just so it doesn't get missed.
Okay, yeah, that's a great idea. Okay. Sorry, let me write this down, folks. I had thought that maybe we do the, what did we call it? Emergency protocol?
Yeah.
And we can talk about it when we get to board work calendar, but maybe we do that during our work session at the end of this month, since we'll all be here. And I thought that that could be a point there. So maybe we don't have to add it to this.
Is it something that has to be done in executive session? Or should be done?
Probably.
I would think so. Yeah. So, but that was my thought.
Although is the executive session item that you can, is it student safety?
School safety.
School
I think
safety.
it covers us. Too.
Is it school safety? Okay, that's, I wasn't sure.
School safety. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, good point. Thank you. Okay, so let's take off a day in the life of SRO. And I felt like there was one more on here that I saw earlier that I want to take off, but any other additions?
No additions, but public comment policy, BCBI. I think a number of us went to that training, and I'm just kind of looking to take the pulse of, it seems like something we would want to consider. And I'm just bringing it up here now. I mean, since it's really a board policy for the board, I'm not really sure it's Dr. Luttrell's bailiwick to have to deal with that. I'm wondering if.
That was the other work session item that I was hoping.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
That's okay. No, we might, we can discuss and get a consensus if that's what we would like to utilize our work session for, is the public comment and policy, First Amendment rights, all of that kind of share work session / an executive session regarding, what did we call
Building
this?
safety.
Building safety or specifically, the protocol for us, and possibly have an SRO present during that so that we know what what we should be doing. I felt like that on October 28th would be.
Awesome. By
I
me.
think that's when I don't have my phone with me.
I think it is.
Okay, I think that's our next work session. So I thought that could be October 28th, I believe.
That's right.
Okay. Everyone sound,
Yeah, so roll those two off of future discussions and
yep, and
Get
move
'em
it
into
to
board
the
work.
session.
That's great.
Okay, cool. Any other items we'd like to add to this? Okay. Okay, all right, if not, let's move on to the board work calendar. Talked about the work session. I felt like there was, sorry, let me get to it. One other item. No, I think that was it. Any thoughts, Dr. Luttrell, on the board work calendar?
No, again, we got a lot of information, just like I think there was some really great information tonight on reports and updates. We've got several more of those coming in the next few meetings. I know one of the ones that Dr. Robinson and I had talked about this morning that we do plan on bringing, at least in one of the two next meetings in some form or fashion, is information and get more direction, is on the two-way radio discussion, as well as also the facility usage. So those are hopefully what should be coming here in the next couple meetings to some degree. Just wanting more information and telling you where we're at and letting you all give us some more guidance. Oh, and then another one that will be again coming up in the next couple meetings, again, to kind of share more information, get more guidance, would be the discussion that we brought up a while back about the possibility of transitioning. Is there interest in transitioning, to a possible new athletic activity conference? But again, so those are things that will be coming up over the next few meetings. None of those right now are scheduled for an action, just more information and insight and guidance. And I did in last week's Friday update when I mentioned the conference transition possibility, I did include in there a doc that did where you can click on it. If you have specific questions that you would like some definite insight on, information about any transition to that, feel free to include those. And that way, when we do come and have that, that's something we can address at that time as well. That's all, Madam President.
I did have a question I didn't see on there. I thought we were going to discuss at some point the fourth SRO edition. When is?
Yes, that is definitely, whenever we approved the SRO contract last February, March, it said in the contract there, we signed a 3-year contract and we had the ability in there that whether it be for 25, 26 or 26, 27, we could extend an option to have an additional and go to a fourth SRO. If there is interest in that, we would, again, we don't need to do it tonight, but we would probably want to, again, like for this year, you want to make sure you get the right individual. And so they got to make sure that they identify that individual, that they then send to training so that they're ready to go come, the next school year. So ideally, we would want to probably try to, if we're going to head that direction, have that discussion and have a decision probably again by late February, 1st of March. So we do have some time. And by that time, we will have a better idea also of what our staffing needs are going to be and kind of what the legislative session will be and kind of have an idea of what our budget outlook's going to be. So, but yes, we would have that ability, but we would have until, if we're going to make it for next year, we would definitely want to do that probably late February, sometime in one of the March meetings.
Is it possible to bookmark that now then and get it on the calendar for one of the February meetings?
As a
discussion.
For a discussion? Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Rachel, if you want to come, maybe we'll plan that at one of the late February, first meeting in March, because typically in March, I think we did pencil 2 in this year, but spring break but yeah, we can do, that would be a great time to go and pencil it in now, yes. And then by that time too, we'll also maybe have some more, probably right after first semester, we can do some more survey gathering among parents as well as students and staff about just how what differences they've seen this year, if any, between the 2 going to 3 and so forth.
Wonderful. All right. Any other thoughts on board work calendar? I feel like okay. Moving on, 11.01, Board of Education member reports. Who would like to go first?
So Prairie Creek Elementary had their first site council meeting. And I got to tell you, it was probably one of the best attended that we've had, not only by staff, but parents as well. And then the agenda, it was really encouraging to see the agenda follow a lot of the initiatives that have been I hate to use the term push down, but they obviously have started here. And had been administered through Dr. Robinson and Dr. Luttrell and the staff down, and just to see the alignment. There's a lot of good things happening at Prairie Creek associated with a lot of the metrics that we're following as it relates to student performance. I've always been a huge advocate of best practices across buildings. If something's working really well in another building, let's kind of cross-pollinate that with another building. And so we're seeing that in a couple of programs at Prairie Creek as well that have been successful at other learning centers in the district. And so it was a tremendous site council meeting. Looking forward to the one at Woodland Spring. It's been kicked around a couple of times just because of scheduling, but I think we're on now for the first week in November. And then the only other thing I want to add is, and I'll let somebody else speak to the actual event that we attended, but I want to thank Johnson County Sheriff's Department and the Spring Hill PD for the course that they administered last week. It was incredibly insightful and educational, and it was really worthwhile.
I attended the Spring Hill Middle School Site Council meeting, and a lot of it was, since we were just there with our morning meeting, a lot of the same themes. But they did talk about, they're going to start a program to honor a student athlete or activities of the month, kind of that sort of thing. And they kind of did a little dive into the different test scores and how they're going to work as a building level to decrease the level 1s and increase the 3s and 4s. Talked a little bit about PLC work and strategic plan, and then talked some about the real world learning initiatives, which they've already done a lot there with the, stuff we talked about at the meeting, but with the outdoor classroom and the disc golf course and how they can incorporate some other things there as well. Kind of antidote to, they had the class of 99 take a building tour because that was their high school. So they said it was interesting to hear all the reactions because it really does look like a different place with all the upgrades and everything. Mark Meek had mentioned that they are open to having like a community member, business member sort of thing on the site council that they don't have right now. So something that I don't know whether all the other site councils have that or not. So I think that was it. And the First Amendment training too, I attended that. I think it was just really good and for us to maybe go over some of those things. I know with some of the other things I do, I've been confronted with what they call the First Amendment auditor. And it gave me some good reference and tools on how to react to something like that, for sure. So that's it.
I had Dayton Creek's site council, and that was amazing. The energy in that building is just so much fun. Same things. They talked about the metrics and bringing up or down test scores. And just a lot of the fun things. One thing to note on November 15th, I know we have a meet our board thing in Wichita, but they're doing a multicultural night that it's really, I really wish I could be here for it because I had a little bit of a head start on the how many languages do we talk in this district because they were talking about it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. And they are bringing in the families of their students are sharing their cultures in different ways with the staff. So that was super, it was just really cool. And then I also sat in on the early learning, the preschool site council meeting. And that was really neat because they're starting to pull in more parent and community involvement. They haven't had a ton, they don't have like a PTO like the other schools do. So they're looking to bring in parents to help bring in some meals and that kind of stuff, which a shirt, they're looking to get some shirts and things that the students and the parents can wear. So it was all really exciting to see how that program is starting to kind of mature and become really embedded in the community. And then they talked about the test scores and how they test their students. And that was fascinating because it's so different than, you know, the test scores that Dr. Smith was talking about. So both really great meetings.
My site council's not until tomorrow night, so I don't have an update, sorry. But I did get a chance to tag along with Dr. Smith to Prairie Creek to PLC last Wednesday, which was utterly awesome. The enthusiasm in the classrooms and the interaction. I mean, it just Dr. Smith, just anytime anybody had anything to say, she had it, and it was awesome to see. You know, and you know, I got a chance to participate just a little bit. I did not interrupt. But you know, one of the things that it kind of reached out to me is helping bridge those gaps for, bringing in career experts or, new and different ideas for type of curriculum things such as, storytellers, that type of stuff and helping, bring a little bit of community and making things a little bit easier for them. So I was appreciative for that opportunity to at least chime in. So great stuff.
I had the Timber Sage Site Council, and sounds like it was along the same lines as Prairie Creek and Dayton Creek, talking about increasing the level 3s and 4s and decreasing the 1s. One thing that they are doing now, which I thought was really cool, that the kids seem to really like, is they're doing positive phone calls home. So if a kiddo has a really great day, then the principal and the student together will call mom or dad and tell them about whatever they did that day. That was so amazing. And so that's been really fun for the kids. One thing that they highlighted was their retention there is at 87.5%. Their goal is to be over 90% next year, which I think they'll totally be able to do. They just have a really great group that gets along really well. And then they did a one book, one school. So the whole school, K-5, read the same book called The Wild Robot, and they are going to see the movie on Friday, as the whole entire school is going to see it together. So that the kids are really looking forward to doing that. And then another thing they're doing is a parent volunteer program. So every Thursday, parents can sign up to come in and help with math win time, reading win time. They can even help out in the lunchroom. It doesn't have to be with your students. So there's some parents that have all day, and so they'll come and help out with kindergarten or first grade, even though they may have a fourth grade student. So they're finding ways to get parents more involved in the school day. And I actually volunteered for my first time during math win time, and I got to play a game with the fifth grade students. So that was really fun. And then speaking of volunteering, they are partnering with KSDE and doing a body venture exhibit on Wednesday, and they need volunteers. So if anybody is a secure volunteer and you don't have anything going on all day Wednesday, I'm sure they would love for you to come in and help out with the exhibit. I'm not able to help this time, unfortunately, but they have a lot of people helping set up and take down, but they need volunteers during the school day for the presentation as students walk through. So if you are able to do that, then reach out to Miss Moschler, and I'm sure she will find a place for you to help out. That's this Wednesday, October 9th. Yes.
And I can tell you how it goes because I am the heart tomorrow.
Oh,
So at Spring Hill Elementary School. I just got my script, so I'm the heart. I can't wait.
You're always our heart.
Or pain, something like that.
So did you guys get the full 25 volunteers? Or are you rolling with 15, or do you know?
I don't know. She sent the list. It was a pretty good chunk, but I don't think it was 25.
So as they told me, as of today at 2 p.m., they only had 12 people sign up, which is the bare minimum. So they'd like to have 25 presenters. So if anybody can volunteer, that'd be great.
25. So they're 13 short.
Yeah, and it's long. It's from 8:30 to 2:40, and you have to be a secure volunteer. So I think next year they're gonna maybe try to split it up. This is the first time doing it, so I think it'll be great though. It should be a really cool exhibit. So I'll have to hear how it goes at Spring Hill tomorrow.
Good. We've all had a lot of site council meetings. I went to the Spring Hill High School site council meeting. Similar, we talked test scores, they are also doing a student and teacher, like teacher of the month, student of the month sort of thing, and they're putting it out there. And I think I just saw the second month's students and teachers that were chosen. So I think that's really cool. There was quite a bit of organic conversation about it was during the threat situation and how that was feeling security. There was some conversation about that. There was, I felt like there was one more big thing. I'm so sorry, but Mr. Williams always is very informative, very great information. Oh, I know it was targeted seminar. So they do every 9 weeks, I believe. Is it ever? I'm like looking at him because I can't remember, but they get to choose. Students get to sort of choose. They get choices and then they get assigned, but it's 20 minutes of almost like learning that's not traditional learning. So a lot of talk about how that's going, what students want to see. We actually had 2 students in the site council meeting, which I thought was really cool. I haven't seen that yet. So I really enjoyed that and their feedback on it. Yeah, it's always great. And that's the only one that's in the morning. And I'm always not the freshest in the morning, but it gets me going for the day. I also went to the Forest Spring site council meeting. Miss Sly does a great job. We had new teachers there. We had new parents. So it was a new dynamic. Things that they were working through last year as far as they were the school that had kind of that secret buddy program where each student was represented somewhere and they made sure to connect. So how that went last year and how they kind of changed it and morphed it to work. Again, student scores. There was a lot of conversation. So a lot of the agenda topics didn't make it. We postponed for next time, but a lot of the same things. We talked a lot about test scores and new things they're working towards this year. So I also attended different session, but same thing with the Johnson County Sheriff's Office and Spring Hill Police Department, the First Amendment rights, which I thought was phenomenal. Time well spent for sure. And I think it's going to help us all as we look through that policy and knowing what our speakers' rights are. So I think that's about everything I attended. So yeah, anything else anyone wants to add? Oh yeah, yes, Royals are up 4-1 as well.
Oh.
I
So-
forgot one thing, if you don't mind,
Yes,
Nicole. And it's, it's very near and dear to my heart, but Watchdogs got started. So I've already had my first Watchdog session. And I know we've got, maybe 6 listeners or watchers out there right now, and we may have a total of 50 when it's all said and done by the end of the week. But I would do everything I could to encourage parents to be present at their schools and take advantage of the Watchdog program. Not only does it help the staff, but it is incredibly enlightening to be a participant in a day in the life of an elementary school. And I'm telling you right now, it is one of the most exhausting things you will ever do.
Wonderful. Thank you. Anything else anyone wants to add? Oh, okay. Well, we've been busy. Okay, moving on to superintendent's report. Dr. Luttrell.
Yes, thank you. The couple things going on that are very important, ongoing for a little over the past month as we continue to develop a path forward for how to continue managing our growth, which I'll share some of our enrollment numbers here in just a bit. We have had a couple different groups that have been meeting, kind of visiting, kind of giving their dream as to, how they think we should address, our path forward in terms of managing our growth, what that would look like. But so far they met in isolation. We've had the community group met once. Then we also had our internal educator team meet once. But our third session is slated for tomorrow evening. And we actually have so many in attendance removed. It's going to be held over at the high school in the high school cafeteria. It's 6 o'clock. And I think last count, we had well over 50, probably even close to 60 people now that have already RSVP'd that were, targeted, for that. So the first time we'll be bringing both groups together. And from that process, start giving discussions and dialogue to start trying to merge everybody's ideas and thoughts into a common plan. And we still have some more meetings. I think after tomorrow's meeting, we have a couple weeks off because that'll give our contractor, construction manager firm, Newkirk Novak, time to go back and take some of those ideas that are kind of formulating down the funnel, get costs for those. And then we're coming back, I think, actually, we're coming back on November the 5th, both groups again. And from there, we'll kind of look at costs and everybody will kind of start, oh, well, what is most important, based upon, their thoughts, what the cost is, taken into consideration. Then our goal is that hopefully from that, then by sometime late November, December, early January, that the DLR, Newkirk Novak, the USD230 administration will bring to you the results of those community engagement sessions and kind of have a recommendation that you all could then start bantering about and looking at yourself to determine if you want to move forward to a possible ballot election at some point in the future. But all that's in the works. It's been going well, but now we're really getting into the meat and potatoes of the work. But that's session 3 tomorrow night, but we've had great participation so far. Another item I want to mention is that a week from tomorrow on October 15th, will be the State of the District Breakfast, which is basically a function that it's co-sponsored, but it's the district's event, but the Education Foundation also is a very strong participant with that. It's so this year, as last year, we're going to the Metal Arc Event Center. That is a day, school is in session that day, but the doors open at 7:30, get the food when people arrive. Our goal is to start the program a little after 8 a.m. and hopefully be concluded not too long after 9 a.m. We've got an array of activity for the program. We've got live entertainment. We've got information that we presented that's been pre-recorded. We've got also some remarks, from different individuals. Dr. Smith's going to talk. We've got a panel of students who are going to talk about some real world learning. And so again, it'll be a really nice event. Hopefully, like I said, if you have not already indicated your desire to attend with Miss Henderson, please do so. But again, that's coming up. It's always a very nice morning to highlight what's been going well and across the district. And I know my remarks that morning plan to be on, again, information about the growth we've endured and what we're doing to try to be proactive in continuing to manage that growth moving forward. And then speaking of that, my last time I want to talk about my superintendent's report is just, as you know, the September 20th was count day. And although you have count day and you get a number, then there's some hard work that begins. The technology department, Mr. Elliott, Mr. Terry, along with our building principals and directors, have to start taking that count and there's some validating you have to do. And so you have to kind of whittle some things down, and we're getting close to what we think our final number will be. I don't think we're quite there yet, but we're very, very close. And I've shared some of those numbers with you, but just ballpark figure right now, it looks like big picture view. If you look at our pre-kindergarten through grade 12 numbers, our head count number is going to fall somewhere around that 4116 mark. And if you look at that breakdown, essentially the approximate breakdown is about grades 9 through 12 plus, because we do have, when I say plus, we do have some students that do stay with us until they turn age 21. We've got a few of those. So about 1,126 in grades 9 through 12. Again, this, approximate is that we're looking at grade middle school. I think we're right around 917-ish. And then K-5, about 1,933. And our pre-K numbers, again, head count there, then that's kind of a hard one because you never know what services or how long they're here. There's about 140 of those. We have 9 of our 13 grades. We look at just kindergarten through grades 12, 13 possible grades. 9 of those 13 are above 300. Starting with kindergarten, you have to go all the way to grade 8 before you get a class that's below 300. And then you have to pick back up, and then with the freshman class of 319, then the rest, of course, up in the upper 200s. but they're rolling on through, with that. The big question is, again, if we wind up falling on that 41-16 mark, give or take a few either way, we do place a lot of credibility and importance on the numbers that Rob Schwartz gives us from RSP projections. He's been with us many years and he's always pretty accurate. If you look at that 41-16 number, he projected this year a head count of 41-45. Okay, so if that, you give or take, that's right, that's a little bit above 99%. Okay, so now again, exact, we'll know more in the next few days, but again, I think we're doing it's exciting, a lot of things going on. You ought to be commended for keeping up with so many different things, but I know that our parents, our students, our staff, they want, the best programming, the best education possible, and I know it's a balancing act, but you all are committed to that. And in the next the next several months are going to be busy, but there's a lot of exciting things that we're doing that's going to continue determining how we're going to stay at the cutting edge of providing the best education to our students that we can, while continuing to deal with all the many, whether they're ELL learners or not, the many students that are coming in to be educated from us. So that's my superintendent's report.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Luttrell. All right, moving on, 13.01. We need an executive session.
Madam President, I move that the board go into executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel matters and non-elected personnel to protect the privacy interest of identifiable individuals under COMA. Those to be in session include the Board of Education, Superintendent of Schools. I think that's it. Yeah. Okay. The executive session to begin at 8:34. No.
Nope. I think we need.
We need everybody. Okay. Sorry. The superintendent of schools and administrators as requested. The executive session to begin at 8:34 with the opening meeting resuming at 9:15 at no later than 9:15 at this place.
All right. There's a motion.
Second.
And a second. Any discussion? All right. Rachel. Oh, did you have a comment, sir? No. Okay. Please take the vote.
Mrs. Milius,
Yes.
Mr. Hull,
Yes.
Mrs. Baker,
Yes.
Mrs. Horn,
Yes.
Mr. Chitwood.
Yeah.
Mrs. Mitchell. Yes, approved.
All right, we are adjourned.
For some reason, YouTube. For some reason, YouTube.
We're adjourned.